Hi, I'm Tessa and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking Disney Cruise Line. I am giving my honest review of my experience on the Disney Dream cruise ship. I just recently went on my first ever Disney cruise, which has been a dream of mine on my bucket list for so many years, and so you can say that I had some pretty high expectations. As a person that loves Disney, and that's a well-known fact by everyone I know, you may be kind of surprised by some of my thoughts, but I wanted to share with you and be honest, so just be aware. Just be aware. I might say some things that not everybody agrees with, and that's fine if you want to like share your opinions in the comments, but this was just my experience on the Disney Dream in February of 2023. So we did a 5-night Western Caribbean cruise from Miami on the Disney Dream. We boarded in Miami and then had our Marvel Day at Sea for day 1. And then the next day we were docked in Georgetown, Grand Cayman Islands. And that night was also Pirate Night. And then the following day was another day at sea. And then our last day was Disney's Castaway Cay. And then we were docked back in Miami the next day. So to start off, I think the biggest question that needs answering is, after this, would I do a Disney cruise again? I don't think you can ever go wrong with any cruise. Like, I've never had a bad time on a cruise, and I do love the Disney magic. So yeah, I want to go on another one. I would really like to go on a newer ship. Ironically, the Dream was my dream for such a long time, because I remember vividly growing up and seeing the commercials for the Disney Dream. And even though I have those memories from like literally childhood, it did not occur to me how old that meant the ship actually was. It was a nice cruise ship, but it wasn't the nicest one that I had ever been on, because if you've seen my previous vlogs on this channel, I also just got off a month before this one of the inaugural sailings of the Carnival Celebration. That's hands down the nicest ship I've ever been on. I do not want this to be a comparison video, but just so you know, it was in my mind, and so it is hard when you get off a brand new ship from 2022 and then get onto a ship from 2011. There's nothing wrong with old ships. I've been on plenty of old ships, but I just kind of thought, I don't know, that because it was Disney, it would like feel very modern. But it was kind of just like a regular cruise ship. Now, when it comes to our staterooms, I liked the room. We did upgrade and stay in a deluxe balcony stateroom, which was nice. I will say that is a plus about the Disney Cruise Line that I've kind of noticed, is that the price to go from interior to veranda, it's kind of not that much comparatively for the price that you pay for the rest of the cruise. It's like you may as well upgrade and have a veranda. So it was nice that we did get to have that and have the light in our room and the extra space as well, because it was a little tight. The other big thing that I had not seen on any other cruise ships before that I really liked about the room was the bathroom style. When you went in, there were actually 2 different doors to the bathrooms. And there was one with the toilet and a sink, and then another one with another sink and the bath shower combo, which I have never had on a cruise before. Pretty insane. I did take one bath just to see what it was like, and it's a little short of a tub, but it was still fun. It was nice. I love baths, so that was a little plus. We had 4 people in our room, and so it was nice that there were 2 different bathrooms that we could use if we were all like getting ready at the same time. I did not love the bed situation. At 24, I was the youngest person in our room, and I know typically probably when they have like 4 people in a room, it's 2 parents and 2 kids. So the setup was that there was one queen bed, which we gave to my aunt and her daughter, and then my mom and I slept on the pull-out bunks that come out of the seating area. So at night when our beds were down, they would come in during the day and close them up so that you had access to the little couch, and then at night they would come in while we were at dinner and pull our beds down. It was pretty tight with the ladder in there and everything. It was definitely not ideal. You couldn't move around the room a lot. And despite being the youngest, I was the largest person in this group, and my arms and feet were hanging off both ends. I can't speak on the fancy queen bed that was in there that most people would probably sleep on if they're booking this cruise, but my bed was not very comfortable, which, you know, kind of doesn't matter if your kids. Kind of showed my age a little bit because I was like, why am I aching? I'm a young person, I shouldn't feel this. But just so you know, if you are gonna share the room with more than one other adult, it feels tight. Even with the beds closed up during the day, it somehow felt tighter than I was used to with cruise cabins. I did think that that might be because of the bathroom, and so although I liked the bathroom a lot, because it was maybe like a larger bathroom, it took more space from the room itself. I really don't like to spend a lot of the time in the room anyway, so this definitely wasn't a make or break for me, but I did just want to point out it was hardly Disney themed also for a Disney cruise ship, which I kind of have that same complaint with some of the Disney resort hotels. I wanted more Disney theming, just all across the board, in the room, on the ship, everywhere. But while the room served its purpose, it was good, it was like maybe a little bit lackluster. I also want to give like ratings out of 5 to all these categories because I'm a big fan of rating systems. So for the room, we chose to rate it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next thing I want to briefly mention, because there was absolutely nothing wrong with it, was the service. I thought the service was great. The staff in general, you know, our room keepers, the traveling dining staff that went with us to every restaurant, loved it. It was perfect, no notes. It was like up to the Disney standard. However, I've also never been on a cruise where I wasn't that pleased with the service too. So like, I wouldn't say that it was better than any other cruise, but it was good. It was great, no complaints. 5 out of 5. The next thing that I want to talk about that I think is like way up there on cruise importance, this is where I think it might get a little bit dicey, a bit controversial, is the food. We would rate this a 2.5 out of 5. I was really not impressed with it. I love food, so food was good. Like, I enjoyed eating, but just to give you an idea, I am not a breakfast person. I normally skip breakfast, don't really like it. My favorite meal on this ship was the breakfast. Typically on cruises, I am a sit-down dining girly. I do not miss a meal in the dining room. That is one of my favorite parts about cruises. But unfortunately, even like watching back the footage that I have from my vlogs, like, I didn't have a lot of good things to say about the food. You know, you expect Disney food to be good, and you expect cruise food to be really good. They also did not have like a very extensive dessert menu. Like, I found myself ordering ice cream a lot, like every night, and like I would have liked the food to be more on theme, you know, because it's a Disney cruise. I honestly want like every dish to be Disney themed, you know, like reference a movie or something. And it was just kind of like regular food. There were 2 things that I absolutely loved on the cruise, and it was 2 appetizers. So my main dishes like weren't even all that good, and I got different ones a couple times, because if you don't know this, cruises typically will allow you to order like as many things as you want. Even in the dining rooms, you can have like multiple appetizers, multiple entrees, and I did that a couple times because I couldn't tell like what I was gonna like, and most everything was just like okay. I wouldn't say any of it was the best meal I had ever had, except for these 2 appetizers, which I'm gonna put on the screen, because these were the 2 best things that I had the entire cruise, and I wish that I could have had them for entrees instead of appetizers. Also, my aunt and her daughter have been on multiple Disney cruises, and they said that there was a really big difference, they thought, in the quality of the food. Like, they were really hyping it up and excited for it, and every meal that we ate, they were like, you know, like maybe the next one will be better. So while we're talking about food, I also want to mention the rotational dining, because that is another signature of the Disney cruise. I liked the rotational dining, if only for the reason that the dining rooms were some of the areas that had a lot more attention to detail and theming. So having a different one each night, we got to really enjoy all the different themes in each restaurant, The 3 rotational dining restaurants on the Disney Dream are the Royal Palace, Enchanted Garden, and Animator's Palette. Because this was a 5-night Disney cruise, we had 2 nights at the Royal Palace, 1 night at Animator's Palette, and 2 nights again at Enchanted Garden. Since I like studied animation in school and I just really like it, I was really excited about the Animator's Palette restaurant. I also vividly remember the original commercials for the Disney Dream where they advertised the heck out of the Animator's Palette animation experience that you got like while you were eating the food, which was so cool and something that I really wanted to see and get to do. So we asked if we could dine there twice because our assigned single night there was over pirate night, and we were worried that meant that we weren't going to get to have that experience at all. They actually told us it didn't matter because the animation experience was actually only offered now on their longer cruises, 5 nights plus, which I did find a little bit weird too because we were on a 5-night cruise and she literally said 5+ nights, but apparently they just meant plus 5. Because we didn't get to do it, and we were all really disappointed in that as well. While the Finding Nemo show thing was cute, it was nice, it wasn't really like that special at all. It was literally just like video screens playing videos. Like if I wanted to see that, I would watch Finding Nemo. While I did personally still think that it was the prettiest and most fun looking dining room, that whole experience was also pretty tainted. So I don't know if this is something that just like everybody knows but me, but I thought if you were going to the Animator's Palette restaurant that was part of what was included. And so did my mom, and so did my aunt and cousin, who have experienced it before on the Disney Dream. Next I want to talk about the entertainment on board because that's like a really big thing Disney's known for. I mean, especially on these cruises. So specifically for the nighttime shows, the schedule was night 1 that we left the port was the Golden Mickeys. Night 2 there was no nighttime show, but because it was our Marvel Day at Sea, it was Doctor Strange Mysteries of the Mystic Arts. Day 3 there was no nighttime show in the theater because that was pirate night, so the big show and everything was like on deck, and the main event was the fireworks at sea, which was like probably one of my favorite specialty things that Disney got to do. Then the 4th night, the nighttime show, was Disney's Beauty and the Beast, and my mom said it was as good as Broadway, if not better, like one of the best renditions of Beauty and the Beast that she had seen. And then the final night after Castaway Cay was Disney's Believe. I personally saw the Golden Mickeys and Disney's Believe, and both of those were so cute. They were by far the best cruise shows that I've seen. I mean, I definitely think that that is an area where Disney is a bit ahead compared to some other cruise lines. I also really enjoyed all the little miniature shows that they had. I liked the Sail Away party, that was really fun, and the See You Real Soon show at the end. Like all those little miniature things that they had, like Disney can put on a show. There were also like character meet and greets supposedly, but we missed a lot of them. I'm not a huge character meet and greet person because I just feel so awkward when I do them, but I would have liked to do some of the like special unique characters on the ship. The one character that I actually wanted to try to meet was Jack Sparrow when they had him out on Pirate Night. I went like maybe 10 minutes early to get in line, and before he was even out, the line was wrapped so far around. And when my mom came to meet me, she actually was able to ask someone how long the wait was going to be, and she said from where I was, it was going to be like over an hour. And I just personally didn't think that was worth it. I'd rather be doing stuff on the cruise. And they actually ended up having to cut off the line soon after that, and it was minutes after it supposedly started. So I don't like that you really couldn't meet any of the characters if you actually showed up like during their stated times. And it was no biggie for me, you know, obviously people that wanted to do it waited in the lines, but I just thought that it was a lot. Another thing that I had heard about Disney ships prior to this, that there would just be like characters walking around and stuff, and that did not happen on our trip at all. We never like ran into characters or saw them just like out and about, which I kind of wish there would have been more of, just to like remind you that you're on a Disney cruise. And the organization behind the character meet and greets I actually think was pretty terrible. There just wasn't a good way to like actually do the character meet and greets. It was also like always just in the middle of a random place, so it was hard to walk around, and if you didn't want to meet the characters. There was one major disappointment for me that happened on this cruise, and I'm gonna like put it in the entertainment category, because we did book this trip specifically because there was a Marvel Day at Sea, and I love a good theme. So I was really excited that like the entire day at sea was going to have this theme, and there were going to be special characters and special food and all this stuff. But unfortunately, the entire day was kind of a letdown for me. Like, no complaints, because like I tanned, I read, I did my regular like day at sea cruise activities, but I just wish it hadn't been marketed at all as like a theme day, because it really didn't feel like there was anything special except for them putting this decal on our window. They did play a bunch of Marvel TV shows on the Funnel Vision, which is the big screen on the Lido deck where they like play Disney movies all the time. And I wish that they had been movies, just because like it's hard to get into a show in that way. So I think movies would have been a better idea. Literally like maybe 45 minutes before the Marvel show was supposed to happen, which I was really excited to see because of the Broadway shows. Like, they came over the loudspeaker and we could barely hear them. It like took us a second to figure out what they were saying, but they actually announced that they were just canceling the Marvel show. They weren't rescheduling it. It was supposed to play twice. Both of the shows were canceled with no explanation as to why, and then they disappeared from the Disney app. Like, I had them favorited and they were just gone. We even walked around the ship later, and they had like a screen where they had everything playing in the theater, and it was wiped from that too. So it was kind of weird, I thought, that they literally just acted like it was never part of the itinerary, which I didn't like because it felt like a little sneaky. I decided to give entertainment a 4 out of 5, which my mom thought was generous, but because I am thinking about the shows a lot specifically, they were great, the shows we got to see, but everything else was just kind of meh for the standard that I've learned to hold Disney to. Kind of along the same lines, I want to say the next category would be theming. And I do want to say there were a lot of really subtle things that I love. The plates at each dining room were like specially themed. I love little details like that. The Finding Nemo mosaic that they had like on the buffet area was beautiful. They had a glass elevator in the atrium where when you went to the upper floors, they had a bunch of Disney characters that you could see. And I love to see who all was hiding in there. So there really were like a lot of beautiful, subtle details. But the thing is, if I'm going on a Disney cruise, I want you to smack me in the face with Disney, personally. I want it to feel different than any other cruise line, you know? There were honestly just way too many points that I unfortunately could have forgotten that I was on a Disney cruise. And that is just the thing that sticks with me, that I can't justify it being like all that great, you know? I did love the themed pirate night. It was fun to see all the cast members and guests like dress up in their pirate attire, and they gave us all our little Mickey bandanas. Since that's something that is kind of like a staple of every Disney cruise, I think they really had like everything together, and it was fun to see that all come to life. But like I said, the theming on the Marvel Day at Sea was just not it. Like, it needed a lot of work, I think. And despite there being some really cool small Disney details, I just didn't think that was enough. Like, this is not the place to be subtle. I truly love to fully embrace the Disney magic of the parks and most Disney spaces that you enter into. Like, even the old Disney stores, like, you felt a difference when you stepped into that store. But I just didn't feel like the Disney cruise had that, unfortunately. I don't know if my expectations were just too high, because I'm thinking of like when you step into the world of the Disney parks, and every single land is immersive, like you're literally walking into a movie. And I don't even think that that was my expectation for the cruise, but I wanted it to be somewhere close to that. And it just didn't do it for me, and it didn't do it for my mom. It was both of our first time on a Disney cruise, but not our first time on a cruise. And I just think a lot of people that I talk to save Disney cruises for their very first cruise, and they're like, oh, it's so amazing. But having been on other cruises, I don't think it's like that much better, because I do think there's a little bit of like cruise magic as well that every cruise has. So I think some people, having never been on other cruise lines, think that that's the Disney magic, but it's not. And I was sad that there wasn't more Disney magic there and like sprinkled throughout the entire thing. And I feel like I was very generous in giving them 3 out of 5 stars for theming, because I gave a lot for the subtle details that I liked, but I just don't think that was enough. Another thing that I didn't love and was kind of disappointed by was the itinerary / schedule that they had. I really didn't think that it was very efficient, and a lot of stuff overlapped. And I know that this is common for cruise schedules because they want to have lots of events that you can do at all times of day. I've never been on a cruise where I didn't like feel like I missed something or not get to do everything that I wanted to do. But on this cruise, I didn't feel like it was thought out very well. Like, things especially that were specifically geared towards adults would all be in like a 1-hour chunk, and it's like, why not spread them out over the days so that you could actually go to multiple? Like, it was set up where you had to choose between different things that would still be appealing to like the same audience. One example is that I actually chose to skip the Beauty and the Beast show because I wanted to get to do Pixar trivia, and that was the only time that they were offering it over the entire cruise, was at like 9 p.m. right in the middle of the Beauty and the Beast show, which I felt like I could skip because I've seen it plenty of times, but I would have liked to see it. I'm not saying that it's anyone's fault that I chose to skip that, because I did also win a medal, and I'm very happy that I did that. I loved the trivia, and I watched the Inside Out show after, and Joy was a surprise guest, so that was fun because that was one of the only characters that I got to see. But I just wish that there were more events like that throughout the day that were geared towards more than just kids. And I know some people may say like, oh, it's a Disney cruise, it's for kids, but Disney themselves markets it as for everyone, so I think there should actually be more things for everyone. Speaking of that, the adults only area was not very good. They had like 2 hot tubs that literally never had less than like 9 people in it at a time, so we never got to use those because it was just so ridiculously crowded and cramped. And there were also like no chairs really in the area, so if you did want to actually like lay out and tan, there wasn't really room to do it on the adults only deck. And I don't like that it wasn't themed at all. I don't think that the adults only area should mean that it's not Disney themed. Like, adults want to have fun too. So yeah, I'd unfortunately have to give the itinerary and schedule of this cruise a 3 out of 5 because it wasn't bad, but it was the least well-planned cruise that I have ever been on. And I just don't expect Disney to be that, you know? I want to quickly talk about the destinations because I do think Castaway Cay, the private island, are a huge reason why you would book a Disney cruise. I really liked that like all the food on Castaway Cay was included. Unfortunately though, I also want to say we went to the Serenity Bay, which is the adults only area at Castaway Cay, and I didn't really like it either. The sun was not facing it, the beach was so small, it was so cold, it just wasn't that nice. Like, it was fine because I like beaches, but I personally thought the family beach was like a million times better, and I wish we had just gone there from the start so we could get like a prime location, but because we thought the adults only beach was going to be like nice and secluded, we went there. And by the time we finally decided to come back to the family beach, all of the prime locations were taken. And I wish that I had known. One of my favorite activities I did on the entire cruise was the snorkeling in Castaway Cay. I think it cost something insane, like $38 or something to rent snorkel equipment to do this, and I would not say that was worth it. But if you bring your own snorkel equipment, they'll actually let you snorkel for free. You just have to use one of their life jackets, which they won't luckily make you pay for. This is the snorkel set that I have from Amazon, and I have taken it on so many trips. It's so worth the money. But they have a bunch of like hidden Disney objects that I was so excited to find. It took me a little bit too long to realize that they did in fact have it marked where they were, because I was like on a treasure hunt trying to find these things and I could not find them. And it got deep too. I was actually surprised at how far out the snorkeling area went, but it was so fun. I found like and they have like an old that's a really enjoyable, potentially free activity that you can do. As I mentioned earlier, our other port was Georgetown Grand Cayman, which I really liked. We picked that over Nassau because I've been to Nassau several times and I honestly don't really like it as a cruise port.
Now that I've actually had a lot of time to think about this, I think for my next Disney cruise, I will intentionally book a cruise that stops at Nassau and just not get off at the port at all. And that way I can utilize all of these ship's amenities with much less people, since most of them would get off at the port. I think that'd be a lot more enjoyable for me, especially since this cruise line is kind of more about the ship than it is about the ports.
But I did really like the port. It was a standard cruise port. When you get off the ship and venture out, it's not really Disney anymore, but I still enjoyed the things that we get to see. I got to go to hell, which I think is really funny. So overall, I thought it was a good port, and it was another country that I got to check off my bucket list. Another very minor detail about this that I want to give Disney credit for is that when we were getting back on the cruise ship, they gave everyone moist towelettes. I didn't know how nice that would be, but I gotta give them credit for the little things, because some things like that were great. So as far as the destinations go, I also give those a 5 out of 5. I loved them both. I loved Castaway Cay. I really would like to get to go back there someday and spend more time. Now getting into the really nitty-gritty, let's talk about the value. I think everybody knows that Disney cruises are expensive. Everybody knows that Disney is expensive. And in a lot of cases, I will look past it, or at least can like justify it by like getting an annual pass. But I do have the numbers, and I just have to point this out, because for me as a visual person, if I see this laid out in front of me, I just can't justify it, no matter how good anything was. And like I said, it didn't meet my standards either. I'm like hurt that I paid this much. So for this Disney cruise, we booked while they were doing the Disney Plus subscriber offer, and this was an amazing deal where they actually gave you the third and fourth person in the room for free. So I have our receipt where it says guest 3, $0, guest 4, $0. Guest 1, guest 2, it said $1,793 per person. So that's how much it would have cost had we not crammed 4 of us into the room, which I feel like we had to do to make the cost seem even slightly reasonable. So what we all ended up paying was about $900 each. Because we did the Disney Plus deal, that's literally basically a 50% off discount. I also just feel like there was too much on the ship that was an extra cost that isn't even included in the base price of a Disney cruise. So as much as I want to tell you that I loved my Disney cruise, like I really did, I'm so happy that that's something that I got to experience. And honestly, I want to go again. Like it was good. It was great. Like I loved it. I get the Disney FOMO. As soon as I got off, I was like, dang, I wish we could do that again. But as a person who pays for her own trips, I just can't not think about how many things that I could pay for, how many international vacations I could buy for the cost of this super short cruise that's no better than any other cruise that I've been on before. So in terms of my rating system for value, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5, and I feel like that's being generous. And we're just gonna leave it at that. Genuinely, this is like making me sad. Like, I hate to have to say that I didn't have like the best experience of my life on my Disney cruise. I feel like the parent that's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Because what I saw online leading up to this trip was like all sunshine and rainbows and perfect Disney experiences. And I also feel like kind of crazy because I feel like I'm the first person to ever feel this way about a Disney cruise. So then part of me feels like it's my fault for having too high of expectations. But I genuinely feel like it was a regular set of expectations to have for a Disney cruise. And it really didn't get there for me. I do also want to throw in a quick like pros and cons list. I've gone into detail, I feel, about most of these things in the rest of this video. So it's kind of already been explained. But if you want just like bullet points of pros versus cons, this is that. So for pros, I would definitely say all the little details on the ship. It was just, unfortunately, the big details were lacking. Castaway Cay was a major pro of the Disney Cruise Line for me, which luckily is available with like any Disney cruise ship and not just the Disney Dream. The breakfast, which, like I said, shocking because I'm not a breakfast person, but I actually loved the breakfast every single day on this ship. The Aqueduct water slide, I'm putting it as a pro because it was fun. I rode it more than any other water slide I ever have on a cruise ship. Like, I love a good water slide, love to have a good time, so it's going in the pros. Pirate Night was a major pro, which again is not restricted to just this cruise ship, so it gives me hope for another Disney cruise someday, maybe on one of the newer ones, that I would have like a much better time. But I loved Pirate Night, I loved the show, and the fireworks at sea were amazing. I'm glad that we got to experience that because, fun fact, Disney is the only cruise line that has like special permission to do that. Something I mentioned in my vlogs but haven't mentioned in this video yet that I would count as a major pro was the Art of the Theme Show tour that we did. It's somewhat of a behind the scenes tour. They don't really take you behind the scenes necessarily, like into the brig or the captain's room or anything like that, but they do give you a nice tour of the ship and tell you a lot of fun facts, and I personally love that kind of stuff. But of all the things on this ship that were free, I was shocked that we didn't have to pay extra for this. I only wish that it had been on like the first day at sea instead of the last, because it would have helped you get acquainted with the ship. But I did really like it and would recommend that tour to anybody if it's available on your Disney cruise ship.
I did remember one more pro that is pretty unique to Disney Cruise Line as far as I know, and that is actually that soda is free on this cruise, which is great. However, they don't serve Dr. Pepper, and neither do any of the other cruise lines I've been on, so they could really earn a lot of extra points with me if they became the first cruise line that would finally serve Dr. Pepper.
The cons, unfortunately, I feel like my list of pros is like so specific to single things, and then my list of cons is gonna be so vague because like I can't pinpoint single bad things. It was just like across the board not great in these categories. So obviously, number one, the huge major con that everybody knows about is the cost. The schedule, like I said, I didn't love the way this was laid out. I think it could have been done better, and I didn't think it was done well on this cruise. Other than breakfast, the food, I really didn't like a lot of the options. The buffet and the daytime food was just okay. Like, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with it, but nothing tasted great except for breakfast. And I am specifically really referring to the dining room food, which is where I like expect the quality to be in cruises, and it wasn't there. The adult stuff in general was boring and lame and needed a lot more Disney touches. The fact that the ship was pretty old, I would count as a con. I don't necessarily think this like affected my enjoyment of the cruise, but again, I feel like I expected it to seem newer or nicer because it was Disney, I do feel like maybe there could have been more updates on this ship than there were. And then finally, I would say the crowds. That's another thing I haven't really mentioned in this video, and I will put a caveat that I think maybe the ship felt extra crowded because it was booked during this Disney Plus offer, so maybe most rooms had 4 people in them instead of 2, which would be your typical, but everywhere we went felt so crowded. I talked about it on the adult decks, but even in the atrium and like I said, waiting for characters, there were just too many people. It was ridiculous. And even though I've been on literally smaller ships than this, I have never felt so cramped and with so many other people in such close quarters on a cruise ship as I did on this one. So I just really didn't like the amount of people. Typically, I can find some sort of an escape on any cruise ship that I'm on. I like pride myself in finding the good hiding spots away from everyone, and that just apparently didn't exist on this ship. And then I do have 2 very specific final cons that, you know, might have just been our experience, might not happen to you, but honestly, we really hated the Marvel Day at Sea experience and that show getting canceled and no updates and everything about that. And secondly, the Animator's Palette experience. Honestly, like, I don't even know if I would have wanted to eat there if I had known that we were not getting that experience. I know things change. It's like not necessarily their fault that we didn't get it when I thought we were going to, because I was basing this off of like 10-year-old commercials. But like, I'm also not the only person that thought we were gonna get it, because it used to be there. It was part of it and it just isn't anymore, or wasn't at the time that we did it. It just sucks that as much as you pay, you don't even get certain things like that included. You have to pay even more for the really long cruises. So only those people are special enough to get the Animator's Palette experience. I hope that I didn't forget anything on either side of the spectrum, good or bad, because I wanted to share it all. The main takeaway I want to give is not that I hated it. I want to make it clear that I really did enjoy this cruise. And if we're just wishing for stuff, if I one day can splurge or they have another deal, I would like to book another Disney cruise. I'd love to experience any of the newer ships as they continue to come out with them. It was always on my bucket list and I will always be able to say I checked it off, but I wouldn't go on the Disney Dream again. I always think that you should do the experiences you want to do, but like I said, maybe this will help anyone else who had, you know, expectations up to here like me, just kind of have them here so that you're not disappointed when it's only like here, the actual experience, you know? So I still, after all of this, want to go on another Disney cruise. And so I hope one day that there are more Disney cruise vlogs on my channel. Like I said at the beginning, I am a rating girly. I love to have like visual evidence to like compare things. So I also mathematically calculated the average star rating from every category that I've put in this video, and the official overall experience on the Disney Dream for me was a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm rating this in the same way I like rate books that I read, and although I've heard people say like 3.5 is not a good rating, I've read books that I liked that I gave 2.5. Like, people have to remember 2.5 is middle of the line out of 5. So 3.5 is actually still above average. So that is good. I'm giving it a good rating, but I just want it to be realistic because I personally haven't seen anyone say these type of things. So if you want to see more of my content that's mostly vlogs or any of these like sit down videos that I will be posting in the future, if you want to like this video and subscribe, that would help me out, and I will see you in my next video.